Hey, what's going on, everyone? Moose here, Airguns of Michigan, and today I want to talk a little bit about something that I've been working with in the background, and I know a lot of you guys have as well. There's this very uncertain time that we are in when it comes to, this world. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of people that are scared and stressed out, and just who knows what's going to happen. We've got just a lot of bad situations going on right now. We have a lot of misinformation floating around, and listen, I just want to say this before I mention this next part. I am not sponsored, supported, or by any means by any companies out there or whatever, but if you want real world news, Newsmax. If you've never heard of Newsmax, you can get an app on your phone, Newsmax. You can get Newsmax through your Amazon Prime. It's an app, it's free, but it's truly legit news. It's not the BS. It's the it's the reality of news. But anyway, so back to what I was thinking about. Lately, I've been hearing a lot of people and chatter, and not that this is a new thing, but talking about bug-out bags, or what do you do if you have to bug out? Well, one thing that through my years of kind of undercover prepping, one thing that has really hit home for me is that it would take a lot for me to bug out or leave my home, right? I mean, it would have to be super extreme circumstances. I mean, extreme to the point where I can't even think of one in particular that legitimately would make me want to walk away from my home without having a massive plan in place. And what do I mean by that? I mean, to get me to leave my dwelling, my kingdom, my castle, what I've worked for, my wife's worked for our entire lives, to get me to leave this and go somewhere without a massive plan in place, like I said, would take a major act of God. I mean, we're talking about, I would have to be experiencing flooding, tornado to the point where my home was no longer livable, stuff like that. And what do I mean by a massive plan? Meaning I would have to have somewhere set up away from my home that would be suited enough to support myself, my wife, and my son, minimum, before I would just up and leave my home. So while I don't disagree that having a bug out bag is a good idea, I actually don't call my bag a bug out bag. I call my bag a bug in bag. And what do I mean by that? Well, at the end of the day, if I'm ever in a situation where I'm away from my home and stuff hits the fan, right? And I come across gridlocked traffic, or any kind of situation where I just need to get home, that's the bag that I want with me in my car to get me back to my home, right? Because this is where I have water, food, shelter, all the things that, that accumulate my comfort and well-being, right? Let's face it, you know, I mean, and of course, anything's possible. So I don't really want to turn this into a debate. But the chances of the government coming down everybody's street and pulling you out into the middle of the road and shooting you in a mass, you know, killing spree is pretty slim to none. This is America, you know. It's, you know, I'm not trying to say that it's not unsteady or unstable, because it is. But the chances of that kind of thing taking place are very slim to none. You know, and we could talk about this for days and hours and weeks and months. So excuse me, and please, you know, try to understand that I'm just trying to help everybody out there. You know, because there's all kinds of scenarios. We could have martial law where we want to get away from that. We could have, refugees moved into our neighborhood and we want to get rid of that. We could have gang violence moving into our neighborhood and we want to get rid of that. We could have, Antifa rioters and Black Lives Matters rioters coming into our cities and our streets, and we need to get rid of or away from that. I understand all that, and the scenarios are endless. So please try not to flood the comments with endless scenarios that we all understand. Because the purpose of this video is to talk about, are you better off grabbing a backpack, right, or even a large duffel bag with you and your family and going and living who knows where, right, under a bridge, if you live in the city, or, you know, in drainage tunnels, or the woods, or the desert, or the mountains, or, you know, are you better off? And you know, and I'm not saying that some people aren't. There are some people that are very well trained in survival, and I don't mean you've watched a couple of Bear Grylls episodes and you're like, yeah man, I could do that. No, I'm talking about people that in real practical life, real world situations, are trained, professionally trained to survive in the extremest of conditions, right? I don't know about you, but I would rather have my head on my pillow with no electricity in my home than my head on the dirt ground with no electricity outside. Just my 2 cents. So, you know, you have a stockpile of things that you can amass, right? And you know, you know, my buddy Brian did a great video the other day about his Bugout bag with his first aid kit, and you know, these things are invaluable, right? I mean, this is actually a trauma kit. It's not just it's not a typical first aid. This is actually a trauma kit. This is, you just got shot. You know, I mean, this is where, you know, your life is really in the, you know, that's what that's for. So, you know, having these things is a great, absolutely great, you know, thing to have. But just keep in mind, you know, like I said, you know, a backpack full of things to step out of your home and out into uncertainness is much more challenging than it sounds. It's not just an issue of, well, I'm bugging out. I'm going to grab my air gun, I'm going to grab my AR, whatever you're going to grab, and I'm bugging out. You need to have a solid plan in place, right? You know, there's a lot of really great groups out there. You know, Team America is a great group, you know, to where, you know, the support is still there. You know, having a group of individuals, you know, there's always strength in numbers. We know that. You know, it's being an individual and out on your own. That's very dangerous and very scary if you know, things happen and go down. And you know, one perfect example is let's say you are out by yourself and you just bugged out. You took off into the deserts of wherever, right, or the woods or whatever. How do you know who the good guys and the bad guys are at that point? Because you don't, right? Bad guys can act like good guys to get you unarmed and do bad things to you. So having a good support group, having a good support team, having a good plan with good people that have been vetted, that you know where you stand, you know what your job is in that community. That's the importance of, if something and when something happens that requires us to feel the need to bug out or prepare, right, for whatever natural disaster may come, right? It's one of those things. So just my 2 cents. I think it's a great idea to be prepared, to have a food cache of food that doesn't spoil or has very long shelf life, at least a good 3 to 6 months worth of food in case something happens. I think it's important to have a way of being able to hunt for yourself, whether it's through an air gun, which I highly recommend because you can buy pellets really super cheap. A good break barrel is, in my opinion, the best prepping gun that you could ever own. It doesn't require air. If you're worried about the spring, you can always buy an extra spring for it, things like that. But I may even turn this into a little bit of a series. I've been doing this for a minute. This isn't something I normally talk about, but I thought it was a great idea the other day when my buddy Brian over at our Ranch Airgun Fund, came out with his video on having a first aid kit. And I think having a first aid kit is marvelously a great idea. Absolutely 100% great idea. And I think everybody should go out and get themselves a very nice first aid kit, stock it with bandages and ointments and a stethoscope and a sphygmomanometer for taking your blood pressure, thermometers, just everything you get, aspirin, Tylenol, Motrin, whatever. This is all stuff that's very, very good to have, because listen, they're calling for a food shortage right now, or they're saying that there could potentially be one. We saw what happened with toilet paper. Jeez, toilet paper of all things. Of course, it didn't happen with us. I live with a couponer, so we didn't have any issues. But that wasn't supposed to be a joke. Get it? But all right. Anyway, I'm moving right along. So, but having those supplies available are great ideas. So, going back to my original, thought of a bug out bag. A bug out bag is something, honestly, in my opinion, maybe you have 2 of them because you do want one at your house, just in case. You're right, there is a very good possibility. But if you're gonna bug out from your home, you better have a good plan in place. And I don't mean just, well, I'm gonna head to the hills. Good luck with that. That's not a plan. I'm gonna head to the hills where I've stashed a tent. I've buried propane. I've buried, all the supplies that I need in that place. That's a better plan. Having somewhere to go, shelter over your head, right? It's very important. Heat, food, water, the ability to have those things. But I think more importantly, having a bag like that in your car is a better situation because you don't know, listen, nobody's going to wait. If bad things are going to happen in a natural disaster or, whatever is going to happen, it's not going to happen when you're perfectly ready for it. It's going to happen when you're least expecting it and when you're least ready for it, right? So we want to make sure that if we're on the road, let's say, 10, 15, 20 miles away from home, we have everything that we need to be able to get back to that home, right? Take, for example, the flooding that takes place in some of these cities. My wife used to work in downtown Detroit, and we had flooding down there one summer, and she got stranded in Detroit. Literally, you could not leave the city of Detroit because all the roads were flooded. There was no way out. And the one side roads that were available were gridlocked from everybody in the city trying to hit a little 2-lane road. So, you know what I mean? That's where you need to be prepared. Is I have to leave my car. I have to get back to my family or my home where all my stuff is. That's where that bug out bag, in my opinion, or my bug in bag, is very important to have. So, you know, Brian, I think great topic, man. I'm so glad that you brought this up. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Now, keep in mind, too, people, that, you know, I have my opinions and you have your opinions. And we can have differing opinions. But let's keep the comments down below productive and suggestive instead of reactive and negative. All right? So I just want to make sure, because I really don't like banning people from posting or commenting on my YouTube channel, but I will not tolerate trolling. I will not tolerate negativity or bullying in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, let's try to keep this in a positive aspect. And, you know, maybe we'll start a whole series on this, and we'll talk about, you know, air guns and survivability and air guns and prepping, and maybe even some other prepping tips and things along the way. So till next time, I'm Moose. This is Airguns of Michigan. Be good to each other, and God bless.